again, and welcome to another episode of Screen Time Continuum. I am Nick, and I'm joined with the boys, as always. Keelan, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. Can't complain. It's a good Wednesday. Just getting through. Can't complain at all.
Good, good. And we got Mike. How you doing, man?
Man, trying to avoid the mosquitoes. It's
Man,
hot.
you're not lying. It is very hot.
Skeetus.
It is a muggy Wednesday out here for us, but we're hoping it's a nice, cool one for you, or anytime you're listening to this. Thank you for tuning in to the Screen Time Continuum. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a movie that just recently was added to Netflix, but came out on June 23rd of 2023. It's called ASVINS. And it was directed by Tarun Teja Malareddy, and also written by him and Yogesh Sudhakara Malineni. And it stars Vasanth Ravi, Maru Lidaran, and Vimala Raman. And the synopsis for this movie is a group of YouTubers who accidentally unleash a 1,500-year-old evil that crosses over from the realm of darkness to the human world. Which is not very complete sentence. It's supposed to say more than that, at least the way the sentence is structured, but it doesn't. So that's what you get for the description of this movie. I don't think we need to do a spoiler review for this one or a spoiler warning because it's been out for a while, but it has just been added to Netflix. So if you're not familiar with it and you want to go check it out, go do so and then come back to us. We're going to be talking about all of the details here. So if you're not willing to hear those details, you can turn back now and come back to us when you have seen it. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave that for the introduction, and we're going to get into first impressions, gentlemen. I will go to Keelan. Keelan, what were your first impressions? Let us know.
My first impression, so this is one of those movies I did not watch the trailer for, so I had no clue what to expect. Initially, like 5 minutes into the movie, I immediately was like, okay, it's a scary movie. I was already going to watch this just based off the fact that it was in a few different languages, and it looked like it was something popular that had hit the Netflix algorithm, and I was like, all right, I want to check that out. But once I watched it, my initial impressions, I expected to get more background on the lore, but overall, I think it was pretty unique, pretty fresh. And at the same time, it had some familiar elements. But beyond that, I'm not really sure where to place this. And that doesn't happen often. But yeah, I'm not really sure where to place this, but it is an interesting walk or interesting journey.
Well, hopefully the conversation forthcoming will help you sort of work that out. Mike, what were your first impressions?
First impression was, what am I watching? And then,
yeah,
like as it began, I was like, okay, so this must be one of those found footage kind of horror films. I can dig that. I'm not a big fan of those, but I can tolerate them. And then it kind of evolved after that was just the intro. It evolves into an actual film or a regular movie. And I was like, okay, I can dig that too. Transitional period. Story wise, I was a little interested because of the way it started. It wasn't scary at all to me. There was no elements of, oh my goodness. It was mostly just like, oh, look at that. That's cute. They really trying. And I think the main issue is just because of the way they did the audio, the music. I think it didn't have the creep factor that you need for a good horror movie.
Really,
that's my first impression.
With you saying that, Mike, do you think the audio presentation was different because of it being in so many different languages as far as translation? Because something that I thought about was, I believe there's also an English version of this movie out there.
It has to be.
Everybody was speaking English. So,
right, at some point. And it seemed like it was translated into Hindi. or vice or however that kind of works out, because there's everybody seems to know how to speak English, because there's a lot of slipping in and out of Hindi to English. So
or whichever
I don't know.
language. Yeah, I don't think it was Hindi,
Yeah.
but yeah, but I know it was a few different
Well,
languages, and I
well,
can't
I
speak.
don't really know the languages. I just because
I
it's
think
an Indian
it's
film, I just say Hindi.
Telugu.
I saw
Tegulu.
Telugu or yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Telugu, and there's also Tamil. I think there's a Malaysian one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few
I saw
different
a couple
versions.
of different versions of the movie for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See, if I
I
had
don't
those words in
know.
front of me, I could do better.
Right. I don't know if
Uh,
the audio has anything to do with that though.
mhm,
To be honest, I don't think the one has anything to do with the other.
right.
Fair.
It's
Sorry,
just the
Nick.
way
You
they
were
composed it.
No,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that's a good question. Anything else for your first impressions, bro?
No, that's it.
All right. Yeah, to be honest, the trailer for Netflix shows the only scene that's in English. So I had assumed that this was going to be a dubbed movie. I did not know that it was going to be subtitles the whole time. I apologize, gentlemen.
That's all right.
Especially hard to do when you're trying to eat. Make sure you don't
Yeah.
eat while you're doing that. But I think that the movie was interesting. There were some. I think it's a little bit convoluted, a little bit overly long. I think, like Mike said, it's not scary. I will say what I really enjoyed was the sound design. Now, I get what you're saying, Mike, about it not being sort of the classic sounds that help build
Mm-hmm.
horror, but there was a lot of interesting sounds in there, and especially since we just got like a surround sound setup, it was interesting to hear all of those sounds. I'll also note that I think one of the positive things for me is that I really did appreciate the direction and cinematography in a lot of the shots. Somebody behind the camera knows what they're doing in order to sort of bring in good shots and good storytelling. So I think that that's there. I think where it really falls apart is just the convolutedness of the story for me. And this movie starts off like Mike said, a found footage film, and then it's a haunted house film, and then it's like a deity film,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
mythology film. So it kind of shifts between three different types of movie, and maybe that doesn't exactly work all the time. Also, I think there's something to be said about the brevity needed for a horror movie, and at a 2 hour runtime, I think that this is too long.
Yeah.
So, but the acting was interesting. I think that the main actor kind of overacted a little bit, but he was selling it. He was trying to sell it as hard as possible. So props to him for giving it his all, because he left it all there on the screen. Yeah, those are my first impressions.
Hey, thorough.
Yeah. So the story of this, I think maybe Keelan can help navigate us through some of the finer details, but the overall story is about these YouTubers that are going to this haunted mansion in England that a archaeologist named RT, I think that's her name,
Yeah.
AARTHI. She had went to, and then there was a murder of like 15 people, and she goes missing, and so they're kind of like are they like paranormal YouTubers? Is that supposed to be their
They're
Well,
thing?
trying. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, well, it seems like they're trying to make um more like a commercial, but
Mm,
because they explained that they were hired by this London company to create a video based on the site for dark tourism or black tourism, they
right,
called it.
right,
And it's more like they're trying to create an atmosphere for them to invite people who are into that kind of like haunted locations to visit.
Right.
right.
And
So
it seemed to
they
be a
have
new
to
venture.
build, yeah. But it seems like they've done it before a few times,
I
so
think
they've kind of made
they
themselves stand out a bit.
right. I think they've done the entire go to a house or go somewhere and do the research on it.
Hmm.
I think this is the first time that they're doing it for something other than just YouTube, and this place has a real history. It's not just like oh, look, this one house that nobody's lived in for 50 years. It's like, no, this is what happened in this place.
Hmm.
And I
You
think
know,
that's what kind of changes it for them because there's actually
and
like there's a hard dollar amount involved too.
yeah, and you know what I was trying to figure out, and I didn't get a chance to really look into it, but I think that's the same house they used in the movie for Daniel Radcliffe's that
Uh,
haunted movie he did, the woman in the blue black dress, I think,
okay.
or the location because it's a mansion on an island that's not really an island because during the day there's a land bridge, but at night it's overflown. I mean, washed
Gotcha.
away by the tide. Yeah.
I
And I was
mean,
trying to see if that was an actual place that you can visit,
mhm.
and I was
I
wondering.
mean, we
I
could
just
talk
found
about
it interesting.
this 3 mile land bridge that disappears at sundown.
Oh, right. Yeah. So they all are going to this mansion where this lady and these 15 people were murdered and this lady disappeared. This lady's an archaeologist. She comes back into the picture later in the movie. But they're there to sort of record and take recordings of audio, I guess.
Yeah.
But the movie really starts with a found footage sort of ending almost, where you see all of them get picked off one by one in a very handy cam shot fashion. But then it
Hmm.
flashes to them getting to the mansion. And yes, they have to cross a land bridge that apparently gets submerged underwater once a day at least. And
Yeah.
By high tide.
I'll tell you what, the director really, really loved that visual
Oh yeah.
because that visual came back, I think, about like 7 times.
Oh yeah.
Where they did the drone shot over the cross with the water
Yeah.
starting to fill up more and more.
Mhm.
Those were really pretty shots, I do have to say. Like there were some really beautiful drone shots and some really beautiful um, sort of top-down shots that they did.
Mhm. Yeah, though I
Hmm.
liked those shots personally because they were your gauge of time. They
Hmm.
were the thing letting you know how much longer you had. And once they no longer showed that, you knew that you were kind of beyond the point of return anyway.
Yes, and also the cross being covered completely with water is,
Hmm.
symbolizing that the evil has come. Um, because they
Yeah.
find out they find out that this mansion has been inhabited by a demon.
Dun
Um,
dun dun.
dun dun dun. And we have it. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell what's really going on for a little while because the main character is named Ar-
Arjun.
Arjun. Thank you. And Arjun is sort of having weird episodes. Once he gets to the house, he's starting to hear voices. He's starting to stare off into the distance. Um, so something's going on with him for sure.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, the
Audio
rest of
and
his audio hallucinations and stuff.
right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the rest of his friends are also starting to get some weird, spooky things happening in the house. So where do you guys want to dive into? And
Well,
Keelan, where do you want to take us?
let's gloss over the fact that there are 4 chapters in this movie that break down the synapses.
Hmm.
Those 4 chapters are 2 deaths, 2 voices, 2 curses, and the mind of 2 worlds. Um, I think those are important things to note up top. And there was one more thing about the story of the farmer's twins. You want
Right.
to tell that?
Yeah, the establishing myth of the movie is, a lot of Indian film harkens back to their mythologies and their stories. So this one is about the Ashwins, that are kind of the mythological twins, and these twins die, and the farmer, the father of these twins, is so distraught by their death that one of the deities comes down and basically gives him one of the twins back. But the twin has to keep these 2 totems in order to stay alive, basically. Um, the twin that gets resurrected, it then becomes so distraught at the idea that he has to live the rest of his life without his brother that he inadvertently sort of summons a demon to give him a Faustian bargain. And that bargain is that if you give me one of the totems, I'll give you your brother back. The problem is that it's a demon and they don't necessarily keep their promises the way you want them to. So what he does is take an evil soul and put it into the body, or make one of the demons change into his brother, without the young one or the resurrected one knowing. And when they get to the village, it brings plague and famine and death until the villagers catch wise and have to do this ritual of binding the totems back together to banish the demon back to the underworld.
Yep. Yep. And that pretty much starts off a long saga.
It is a long saga. It's a little too long. It's a little too long. You know what's interesting here, though? The whole like sort of twisty turns. This is sort of like the haunted house segment of the movie. And I really was kind of hoping they were going to go in a direction that they didn't end up going. There was a point in that sort of thing where I think one of the like the little brother, the two brothers, like the younger one who just got into college, he starts freaking out over a recording that we hear in the beginning of the movie. And I thought it was going to be like a situation where they're haunting themselves. Like there was like a dual, like parallel reality running where it's like they were just scaring themselves the entire time.
Yeah, that could be different.
Yeah.
I personally liked the idea that Artie had taken artifacts from these places, and because she brought those artifacts back home, that caused all of this. I wish that was explained a little better.
Yes, because I guess she brings the totem to the mansion, right?
Yeah, she brings the two, because she's had both of them. She separated them herself in the house.
That's right.
And that's what basically caused everything.
Right.
Very Evil Deadish. Very Evil Deadish.
Yes.
Without the gore.
Fair. Yeah. Yeah, without the gore.
Well, because in the Evil Dead, there was an ancient Mesopotamian book, which was the Book of the Dead, and they bring it to the cabin in the woods and then decide to recite stuff from it. Not the new one. I'm talking about the original one.
Don't do it.
Don't recite Latin in a book.
Right.
Man, ever.
Ever.
I don't care if you in class, fail that class.
Right.
So Artie, we find out that Artie could hear voices, and she was aware that not everybody could hear and see things that were already gone and still stuck on his plane. However, Arjun could, and what we began to see was all of the rituals and artifacts that Artie had were all kind of leading into this situation. And at this point, we find out, or we believe, that everyone else is dead because the demon has killed them and taken them, and it's kind of just over. Like there's nothing about this story at this point that makes us think anything is going to happen other than everybody's dead, because we really don't know what's going on.
Indian movies love to do that, where it's like you feel like the end is coming already, and then you're like, wait, hold on, what? You've ended the story like 20 minutes into the movie.
Right.
And then they come up with like a whole new story that they're going to be telling you.
Start with the end. Sorry.
No,
so yeah, so after Arjun gets all of Artie's artifacts and then he goes back into the house, he finds out that Ritu was pregnant, and Ritu is his girlfriend. So that's what we didn't do. We didn't introduce all the other characters.
You know what?
Ritu. What's up?
I just realized how right you were, Nick. This movie is way too long for such a simple idea.
Yeah, it's much too long. It could be an hour.
We've literally just explained the entire movie in the last 5 minutes.
Pretty much.
We're gonna probably do it like 2 more times.
Yeah,
just to explain it, just to get.
We got to pad out this
we keep going. We keep going to the end. Like we explain everything to the end, then we have to jump back to the beginning just to explain
this one part right here.
Fill in some gaps.
Right.
Not a lot of filling. Like it's the craziest thing. There's not much filling. Like. For instance, you don't even really get all of the details of how she gets the artifacts and where she was and all of that until the end of the movie.
We don't. Do they even explain where the artifacts came from?
India.
Yeah, she got them in her last trip from India, and then she decided to bring them to England
Hmm.
for some reason.
Because she couldn't
India's
be
a
certain
big
if she was
place, but I
It's a
understand.
very big place.
huge.
Just India. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. She was with a friend and she stayed in that friend's guest room, but nothing happened to that friend. Like we
That
don't know
was a
nothing
nice
about that.
guest house. Did you see that? I was
Super
like,
nice.
dude, that's like nicer than my house. What are you
I
doing?
kept thinking about spiders, so I don't know.
Not
That's
as
all I can
many in
think of.
India as you would think. I don't
I
know.
don't know that. I
I
assume
don't
it's
think
like
so.
Australia. Everything's trying to kill you.
A little bit less so in India, but then you have tigers. That's the problem.
Oh
See,
God.
Tigers and
Yeah.
cobras.
Just
and
wrecking the shit.
pythons and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So after he finds the pea stick, he goes back to that camera that he found a little earlier, Arjun we're talking about, and he takes out the memory stick and he slaps that in his laptop. This is really when we start to get the information on what's going on. This is really when we start to understand who Arjun is and also why Arjun can't die. Because we found out in the original story that, right, that parable that was told at the beginning, that
Yes.
dang it. Oh, we found out that unless the totems are taken apart and or destroyed, which they were, so it doesn't make sense that he didn't die. But um,
Natural death.
yeah, he couldn't die a natural. You mean suffocation? Never mind. He
Mm.
couldn't die a natural death. So every time he died, no matter what, he would still survive, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. Nobody knew it at first, but then we find out much into the movie, maybe like 5 minutes later, um, that the evil spirit is still alive, and as a kid, or excuse me, the kid that survived and was able to do all of these things, um, he is Arjun, and it
A
is up to Arjun.
reincarnation of
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, in the way that Indian movies do this, where they like make their character an embodiment of a god.
Mhm.
So yeah, he's an iteration of the Ashwin,
I
the twin.
I want to say that's probably one of the hardest ones, and I think I did already gloss over this. That is the hardest thing about telling this story right now. We're
Mm.
not told too much about the deities on either side, the good or the bad. The
They
Yeah, well,
evil,
seem
because
we don't know much
it's a
more about.
movie for Indian people who already know
right,
their know their
That's true.
right.
mythology.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's hard for us to probably explain to people who aren't familiar with it either. But this whole thing with Arjun is he's starting to see split realities here.
Right. He can see
Um,
between the veil.
yeah, so he's now starting to see, and what we find out is that there's this alternate dimension because every life has two lives. And so if you die in the real world, you get sent into this sort of middle existence where a demon can attack you.
Purgatory.
Kind of, I guess,
Basically.
purgatory. Yeah.
Well, unless you consider that Arjun sees dead people.
Yes,
Right.
he does. He does do that. But he's able to see through these things, and that's why there's this like kind of weird psychological thriller for about 20 minutes where you're not
Mhm.
wondering, you're like, why are these people dead on the lawn? And then you
Right.
see Arjun is like, oh, the demon inside me, and you see him strangling and killing all of his friends.
I kind of thought that's what we were kind of getting to at one point, where he was the one who killed all his friends,
Right.
and
Mhm.
then
Yeah,
it
me
kind
too.
of got spun on its head, like he's not really dead. They're not really dead, and he's not really the demon. And then I was like, wait a minute, what?
Make up your
Try to keep up,
mind.
man. You got to keep up.
Right.
Well, that's when you go
This
back
movie
to
turns on a dime.
that's when you go back to Artie's story and how she had started translating the manuscripts because she didn't realize what she had done, and then she isolated herself to do that. And by the time she finished translating the manuscript, she realized that she had released the evil deity onto the earth, and only the child could save her now.
We said don't read from the book.
Hmm.
Amen.
We
I'm
said
trying to
that.
figure out how did she know the golden child even existed?
Because they always incarnate themselves when they're needed, I think.
Fair
Maybe.
enough.
Because
Fair
dear
enough.
brother Numpsy said so.
Sweet. Um,
Old
and
heads will get
also,
that one.
did she draw the picture of Arjun?
That is not explained. Yeah, I don't know.
Plot hole.
Yes.
Hey, swerve left. Um,
But that
So yeah,
okay, so yeah, then he realizes that he is the sort of the son or the child that is
right.
supposed to be the counterbalance to the demon. He's basically the twin. He's the living twin to the
You mean
dead
like yin
twin.
and yang?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically. Dun dun
Dun, dun,
dun.
dun. Right.
It's almost like we've been telling the same stories for thousands of years.
I'm just
But
waiting for the rabies to come into it.
yes,
I don't
right.
think there was any rabies this time. I think they got
I
away with it.
know.
They were in
That's
the
gonna be
cave
How
quite a
fun.
bit, but I don't
dare
think there was
you?
anything there.
I
Sorry.
know. I don't know if we can work it in this
Psychological
one.
rabies.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
there's always a way.
Demon rabies. So
We don't want,
he
rabies.
learns through the laptop that the only way for him to beat this demon that has taken his friends to the other world um, is that he has to bring the totem down into the demon world and unite the two totems together.
Mhm.
And the only way he can get into the demon world is by killing himself, which
Yep.
he does
Suffocation with plastic.
in Tarantino-esque fashion, to be, if I might add. Like that was
I thought it was pretty
pretty.
clever.
That was
That was dark.
that was
Yeah.
dark.
Ultra.
That was super dark.
Because
I think I did look.
he
I did have to look down like one. Like, oh, I can't watch this.
Yeah.
he tied his own hands behind his head after he wrapped the tape around his head. I was
Right.
like, wow,
That's commitment, man. He held his breath that
right?
whole time
That's
to
right.
fix himself
He
to a pipe.
he was trying to save Ritu and his baby.
Yeah,
What?
that's right. He
I
had to go
mean,
into the underworld to rescue his wife. Yeah.
Yeah. And he wasn't
So
talking about no pingolins either. No, I'm joking.
no. Yeah.
yeah.
So he that's how he does it. He does kind of a Doctor Strange thing now. Now he knows that he can't die, so he has to go down to the underworld. And the first time he gets there, the demon promptly snaps his neck,
Right.
and then he wakes up with the plastic wrap over his face, and then dies again.
That was
Goes
clever.
back.
That's just messed up.
It's
That was
super
clever,
messed up. Yeah, so he basically does a Doctor Strange where he keeps coming back to the underworld trying to figure out where the totem is, and then he has this sort of fight with the demon, this mind battle that only Professor X and the hell was that guy's name?
Magneto.
Not Magneto. The one Professor X in prisons. I don't know. I forget. Anyways, but they have this mind battle with each other where Arjun finally realizes if the demon is so
You
powerful.
mean Legion?
Yes, in Legion.
What I know who you're
the
talking about.
God, that's gonna bug me.
Yeah.
It's gonna bug me. The bad guy in Legion was not the mind. I keep thinking the mind flayer.
I know. 'Cause that's
not it.
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, I'm gonna look it up. Sorry, guys.
yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue too.
Let's see. I know
That was I really liked that show, by the way. I thought they did a really good job about that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too.
That dude was creepy.
It was super creepy, and that's why it's bothering the hell out of me because now I can't find the freaking name.
I'm like, I wish I could help. I have no clue.
All right. Well, anyways, he's the big head guy in Legion that gets trapped by Professor X. And Arjun has this mind battle with the demon, and he realizes, oh, if the demon is powerful, that means I'm powerful too, because we are this sort of dyad. We are the twins. So whatever power he has, I also have. To which he basically uses to teleport away. Just nopes on out of there.
Nope.
And then it shoots back to the captured or the captured video style of filming,
The film, yeah.
which I was kind of confused by.
Shadow King.
The Shadow King. Thank
they
you.
They needed good shots.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
The Shadow King. Yeah. So is he going back to the original storyline from the beginning of the movie, since it was shot in the found footage style?
That's a great question.
Because I
I
think
don't
that
that I
that's what
don't
the
understand.
story is saying. Yeah.
Like that was getting back to the point at which now we're just watching what's already happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't know if we see exactly what happens to Arjun in the found footage part. Do we?
No.
Yeah. So maybe that's where he teleports back and then they have that thing and he's battling, trying to get information from RT, who's like a big hair monster thing.
Right.
And then he is able to find the other totem in the underworld in what, a pond?
Yeah, underwater. So where we saw at the end where he went underwater and it looked like he was drowning, he wasn't drowning. He was looking for the idol. We just didn't know that at the time.
Right. Right. And he finds the idol and he finds he's in the underworld with the idol and he binds the two together and defeats the demon.
Yep.
Yay.
His strongest mind prevails. And the only person that actually didn't make it in this entire movie is
As a
Rahul.
little brother.
Yep.
Yeah. He was just about to go to college too.
Darn.
Just got accepted into college. Come on, man. Can't do that to him. Yeah. Unfortunately, he was killed by the demon in the liminal space, which means that you are not allowed to go back to the living world after. To me, it's like, okay, well, all right.
Why did he die and not Grace?
Anybody? I don't know.
There's no reason for the college kid to die on the astral plane.
Well, I mean, there was
dead in the astral
the way they did it. There's no reason for any of them to be dead.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
because I mean,
the astral plane, you must die.
Because personally, I thought, okay, well, all the time that's passed since they've been in there, if they're getting tortured that whole time, shouldn't they all be dead?
That's a fair point. Or battered, beat up, something.
Yeah, you would think so. But the movie throws us another curveball, and we find out that in order to truly defeat the demon, the living twin has to kill himself while the totems have been bound.
Right.
And this is when what is her name? Ritu. Ritu wakes up from the garden of the mansion and runs to go find Arjun. Arjun is still dead with the plastic wrap around his head because he's in the underworld right now trying to make a decision about whether he's going to off himself to keep the demon away for forever. And the movie kind of cuts away right after you hear him take a breath. And
he definitely did not choose to not come back. He came back. But they want you to believe his strongest mind prevailed, and his good side is the one that's back, not his bad side.
That, and he'll be ready for the demon when it returns or whatever, right? You know. Famous last words. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the movie. We were able to explain it in 30 minutes.
Yeah,
it didn't really take 30 minutes.
57-minute movie.
No.
It was definitely a pilot episode.
Right. Technically, we explained this movie within 5 minutes, but you know.
True. We did.
Details, Mike. We needed the details.
What details did we give?
His name is Arjun. There's a demon.
There's a mansion that has a road that drops you off 3 miles before the mansion.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. 3 miles.
And then you have to walk. You have to walk a land bridge that's being filled with water slowly.
Why can't I just take a boat the whole way there?
Yeah, right.
Did no one think of that?
Definitely should be a little schooner or a little knock.
Something. Can I get a rowboat? Something.
You can have a fan boat. That's easy.
Right?
Shallow water fan boat. There you go. Done.
That's it. Like a swamp.
Yeah. Well, they didn't do that. No. That's for sure. All right, guys. Well, you guys have any budget for sure. Do you have any last thoughts and before we do the ratings?
This was my last resort.
All the female
Mm,
actresses were gorgeous.
fair enough.
All the
Okay.
guys were ugly.
Oh, that's mean. You're just
Hey,
jealous. That's all.
Yeah.
maybe, maybe, but I'm not gonna tell you they handsome neither.
I was trying to figure out what we were supposed to say to that. Like, were we supposed to disagree with you?
Absolutely not.
Fair
But it
enough.
is 2023.
No.
Hmm, fair enough. Any other final thoughts, Keelan?
No.
No.
No, yeah, I mean, I think we've said everything that could be said about this movie. It wasn't bad. It was different. Like I said earlier at the top, it was unique. As you said about the cinematography, we kind of covered all of those bases.
Hmm.
Overall, I think the main thing that could have really been done different about this movie is if I had to choose one thing to change this movie to make it better, um, hmm, I didn't think this through. I really just gave this off the cuff. One thing I could do to make this movie better, that would be my final thoughts, and then I'll rate it. It would be 30 minutes shorter. And we would get more information on the deities for those of us who maybe don't know.
Mm.
So less time with more information. But outside of that, it wasn't terrible. I actually, I'm curious. Like if they did almost a prequel, you know what I mean? I might go ahead and check that out.
Yeah.
But yeah. With that being said, this is only going to get a 4 or 5 out of me.
For
So yeah.
sure. Fair. Mike, what do you think?
My big gripes were the audio, like I mentioned in the beginning. It didn't have enough crescendo to bring in the scare, to bring in the heightened emotions and of the moments that they were trying to pull off those scares. So that I took a shot with that, and
Mm-hmm.
I did like the cinematography. I thought it was beautifully shot. I don't even usually comment on that kind of stuff, but I thought a lot of the scenery was nice. The look of the mansion from the outside during the daytime, I thought all those were great shots. Um, the only other thing I didn't like was the constant narrating from the main character's point of view. I didn't care for that
Mm-hmm.
because he wasn't actually narrating anything of usefulness. It was
Yeah, he was
just
foreshadowing a lot. Yeah.
philosophical stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it didn't help move the story or the plot or anything like that. So it was just like a bunch of useless jibble jabber.
Yeah.
So I didn't care for that. So I honestly I was thinking about the same as Keelan. I was thinking 4.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Let's see. The things that I did like were the cinematography was actually pretty good. You can tell the person behind the camera cares. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to take some points off. I don't know what's going on. I think we're all being MK Ultra, but this like trend of saturating a scene in one color, we got to stop doing that. We got to stop doing that. I feel like I'm being MK Ultra brainwashed with like the green, yellow,
They're trying to
red.
set us off every time.
Yeah. Um, so don't do that anymore. But the cinematography was really nice as far as the establishing shots, the top downs, the drone shots, the
Mm-hmm.
scenery, all of that stuff was really pretty. I think the story is interestingly enough. Like, it's just not.
We
It's a
didn't get
little
enough of it.
right, and it's a little bit too convoluted and it meanders a little bit too long. I think that if you tighten this up, like Keelan said, you could probably get a better story out of it.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, so I think I'm with you guys. A 4 is about where I can give it. If I wanted to push it to maybe like a 4 or 5, I could, but
I couldn't
yeah,
in good
this
conscience.
yeah, me neither. Like I'd just be giving it sort of sympathy points at this point. But
Ouch. Are you guys taking shots at my rating?
no,
No.
no, no. But I just think that it is like it's around that area. It's 4, 4, 5. It's not awful, but there is a lot that needs to be sort of like tidied up
Yeah,
if you wanted to make like a 6 or a 7, you know.
Yeah. It's not too far from that, but it definitely can improve.
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
All
gives us
right.
a base like 4-1, 4-2, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I
All
think
right.
that culturally, I think for those folks, it might actually be scary. So I think they should check it out.
Maybe.
Truthfully, I think that this is more Western than the typical foreign flick that we've seen. The
You think
typical
so?
for this particular movie,
Bollywood,
I guess Eastern. Well, I mean, I know there's different sectors, so I know that's why we trying to just call it Indian. But what I
right?
mean is, um, a lot of the cuts and the music and the way everything was layered, it felt like a Western, like they were really trying to make this more of a Western flick. So I don't know if it's gonna be if it's as good to them compared to what they typically get as we may think. It may actually be a very lowbrow type of a movie for them.
It was missing a song and dance routine. That's it.
That is true. I
That it was.
mean,
It could have been a creepy one, but it needed one.
Like a
bro, if they all
thriller.
just came out, yeah, exactly. At the end, all of them, just like,
Right.
yeah. Why not, man? Do it anyways. You don't
Do
even
it
have to
anyway.
make it a part of
Do it in the
the
credits.
movie. Do it in the credits. I would love that.
We watch it.
That would
I
get a
loved
point. That would get
Indian
a point
Thriller.
5 for me. Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
It was so funny. Oh man! All right. Well, I think that's it for us tonight, guys. That was a quick one. We usually have a lot to talk about, but I
Yeah.
think that might be telling that we are wrapping it up so quickly here. So,
Well, there wasn't a whole lot to go along with. I
mhm,
mean, there was a long movie with not a lot of information.
Yeah,
true.
it was a lot of like honestly, I think if this were dubbed instead of subbed, it would have been even less to talk about
Probably.
Yeah,
because the
maybe.
subtitles give you more description.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Yeah. Well, they all can't be great. So this one is going to get a 4 from us here at Screen Time Continuum. But stay tuned because we'll be back on Sunday evening, 8:30 p.m. We might have a special, banter episode for you guys this week too. We might throw one in, squeeze one in, if we can
Yes,
find the
sir.
time. Anything else you guys wanted to mention before we sort of sign this off?
No,
no, no,
I
No?
got nothing.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much for tuning in, you guys. We really appreciate it. This is a quick one for us, but we'll be back Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. and maybe do a surprise episode sometime between that. If you want to check out anything else that we do, you can check out these podcasts here. Right there. And subscribe to those. And we have a big catalog of a whole bunch of other podcasts that we do with friends or by ourselves. So if you're interested in more content, there is tons of stuff in our archives at every one of these places. I know that Mike is streaming on Twitch at King of Ilion, so make sure you go subscribe to him. Also, Strawberries and Coffee on Twitch as well. Then you got If Numbers Could Talk and Exofathom and This Married Moment, as well as this podcast, Screen Time Continuum. All right. Cool. We good, guys? All good?
Good.
Sweet.
excellent.
Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. We hope that you have a wonderful evening or whenever you're checking this out. For Screen Time Continuum, I am Nick.
I am Keelan.
And I might
Exactly.
like and subscribe.